Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. 5 lines from the top. Our Mishnah taught us that if there is no room in one's house and he needs to be mefane 4 or 5 kupois shel tevua, he's permitted to do so in order to then fulfill a mitzvah purpose. For example, a person needs to then have space in order to do the mitzvah of hachnosas orchim, or to then mesader the space for talmidim, so it shouldn't be bittul beis hamedrash. So the Mishnah says there's a heter, even though midirabanan there's an isser of tircha, they permitted in such an instance to remove non-muksa objects in order to then do it for a mitzvah purpose. One of the interpretations of this is Rav Chizda, who explained that this, which it says you can move it 4 if there's 5, or 5 if there's more, he says that you cannot begin removing it from the oitzer. That means that if you had not began removing some of this tvua before Shabbos, then it's muktzah. And this is, of course, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says there's muktzah on Shabbos. The Gemara now brings a brayso along this shita. Tonu Rabbanon ein matchilin ba'oitzer techila. A person cannot begin by taking the tvua from that oitzer if he didn't do so already before Shabbos, because then it would be muktzah. So although we said it's mutter to mefane dalar chamesh kupois, that's provided that it's not muktzah. But if he did not yet remove some of this oitzer before Shabbos, then the whole thing is muktzah, and he would not be able to do so even for a mitzvah purpose. Aval oise boy shevil kedei sheikanes v'yetzei. But he could go ahead and make a shvil, a little bit of a pathway, so he can enter and he can leave. That means he can have space to walk through and then walk out. Ask the Gemara, Oise boy shvil v'ho amris ein matchilin. How can you make a shvil? It says you cannot remove some of this oitzer because you didn't begin before Shabbos, and therefore it's muktzah. Answers the Gemara, Hochi ka'amar, oise boy shvil beraglov. You can do so by moving it with your legs when you enter and when you leave. There's a machloikis in the poskim and the achroinim whether you can go ahead and move muktzah with a person's goof. It's called tilta beguf, not with one's hands. For example, over here with your legs, with your feet. So the opinion that says that you could do so seems to have a clear proof from over here. That over here, although you cannot remove muktzah, because it was not that begin with before Shabbos, it's considered to be an oitzer that's muktzah off limits. But with your legs, you can make a shvil. So therefore, we see lechara that indeed one can move muktzah with his feet, with his legs, tiltul begufoy. On the other hand, the other posek says that no, that the reason why this indeed is mutter with your foot. Normally, you cannot move muktzah with your foot, but over here it's derech halicha while you're walking through. Then you can move it for your leg because it's derech halicha. Otherwise, one cannot just kick it aside with his foot. The Gemara now brings another brayso, Tanu Rabbanon, tevua, tzevura bizman shehitchil bo me'erev Shabbos muter lihistapik mimena b'Shabbos. The brayso tells us if you have a pile of grain, and a pile of grain indicates that it's not for normal, the typical usage, it was put aside. It says over here, but if he began taking from that pile before Shabbos, then he can go ahead and mistapik, he can use that grain on Shabbos. It's not muktzah. However, if he did not do so before Shabbos, then it would be muktzah. V'im lav also listapik mimeno b'Shabbos div Rabbi Shimon. This is the sheet of Rabbi Shimon, the Gemara seems to say. Rabbi Acha matir. And the brayso goes on to say, but Rabbi Acha would be matir. Ask the Gemara the obvious question. Klapi layo. To whom are you turning this teaching towards? In other words, you're mixing up the shitas. We know that Rabbi Shimon is the one who's more mekil when it comes to muktzah, and over here you're teaching us that he's the opinion that says it's also listapik from the oitzar. Answers the Gemara, Ela ema divrei Rabbi Acha. These are the words of Rabbi Acha, who says that it is machmir, that a person cannot mistapik unless he did so before Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon is matir. Rabbi Shimon says there's no muktzah over here. He can go ahead and use this pile of grain even if he did not use so before Shabbos. Tana, Kama shiur tevua tzevura. The Gemara wants to then bring a brisa to then define what means it's a pile of grain that makes it into an oitzer that's off limits unless you were mistapik before Shabbos, the Fishitas Rabbi Yehuda. Answers the Gemara, lesech, if it has the shear of a lesech. Lesech is the shear of a chatzi kur, which comes out to be 15 sa. Now, that's an interesting shear because Rabbi Hananel points out that that's in line with our Mishnah. The fact that our Mishnah says is that you can have the most, according to Rabbi Chizda, of 5 kupos to then be mafane, that's because each kupa has the shear, he proves, to be the shear size of 3 sa. So it comes out to be 5 times 3 is 15 sa. That's the minimum of an oitzer. Boy mine Rav Nachumi bar Zechariah me Abaye. Shiur tevua tzevura bekami asked the same question. What is considered to be the minimum amount of tevua that's considered to be now a oitzar? Omar le hare amru shiur tevua tzevura lesech. They said that indeed the minimum amount is a lesech, which we said is 15 sa'ah. Iboilu, the Gemara now presents the following question: Hani arba v'chamesh kupois dika'omar. That which it states in our Mishnah, one can be mafane dalet or hey kupois be'arba v'chamesh kupois in tfeiloi. Does it mean only 4 or 5 kupois in terms of that which you can take out, and nothing less in terms of more kalim, more vessels that are smaller that would come out to be the size of 4 or 5 kupas? Is it dafka 4 or 5 kupos, these type of containers? Alma lema'ute behiluchach adif, and therefore it would try to minimize the amount of traveling, of walking rather, that you would be doing by being mefane. Therefore they limit to just 4 or 5 containers of kupos. Or dilma lema'ute masui adif. Or did they say it's actually preferable to then put into small containers with the content, the amount of 4 or 5 kupos, and therefore several small containers in order to then limit the heaviness of the weight that one will be carrying out. And again, since the shaila over here is tircha, so then there's 2 different aspects. There's the tircha of walking a lot, and there's also the aspect of tircha of the heaviness of the load. So which one does it mean over here when it says in the Mishnah Dalit or Hey Kupois? Toshma Ditani Chada Mefanin Afilu Arbe v'chamesh Kupois Shokade Shemen v'Shokade Yayin. The Brisa says that you can mefane 4 or 5 kupois over here that are of Kade Shemen, jugs of oil as well as jugs of wine. However, there's another Brisa V'Tani Idoch Be'eser v'chamesh esrei, that you can go ahead and take 10 or 15. So it's mashma over here that there are 2 brises that are actually going like 2 of these different stadim that we just asked. One brisa seems to imply that it's going to be better to mima'et the hiluch, and therefore 5 kupois. The other brisa, it says 10 or 15, comes to say that's better to mima'et the tircha of the mosui. My lad beho kamiflagi, the mar sava ma'ute behiluch adif, umar sava ma'ute b'masoi adif. Isn't this the machlokes? Lo, says the Gemara, the kuli alma ma'ute behilucha adif. Really, you can say that everybody agrees you're trying to minimize the hiluch, and therefore better to take 4 or 5 kupois davka, umisavris be'eser uvechamesh esrei akupas koi. And what did you say that you can take out in the brisa? It says 10 or 15, which implies then smaller amounts, and therefore b'mimayit the mosui. Akadin koi, it's going on kadin, it's not going on kupois when it says 10 and 15. V'lo kasho hod mishtaklei chad bekupa, v'hod mishtaklei trei, v'hod mishtaklei tlosa. Here we're talking about where the size of the jug was so big that it was enough to fill it 1 kupa. That would be the first brisa. That means our Mishnah that says 5, and that first brisa that says 5 refers to, then you have a jug that fills the entire kupa, and therefore you bring 5 kupois out. The second brisa that says 10 implies that you can go ahead and take a medium-sized jug where you can fit 2 different jugs into 1 kupa. And therefore, 5 times 2 would give you 10 jugs. And the third case, which the second brisa brings, is 15, which has a smaller jug, which you can fit 3 jugs into each kupa. And therefore, the Gemara says, okay, the kuri de harpenia. And therefore, it's like the small jugs of the area of harpenia that they can fit 3 jugs into 1 kupa. Iboilu, the Gemara now asked another question. Hani arba v'chamesh dika'omar. This that we said 4 and 5 in the Mishnah. Again, Lashvitas Rav Chisda. Ha'afagav the islay orchin tuva or dilma hakol lefia orchin. Does this mean that no matter how many orchin you have, you're limited to them be mefane dalet or chamesh kupois? Or no, it's lefi the amount of guests that you have. If you have many guests, that you need even more space, then you can mefane even more. If you're going to say it's according to the amounts, then we have another question. Chad gavra mefane lekulhu, or dilma gavra gavra mefane lenafshei? Does one person, is he clearing it out entirely himself, or does each person have to mefane for himself? Toshma, the Gemara wants to bring the following proof. The Omar Rabbi Chia Paim Achas Holach Rabbi leMakom Echod. One time Rabbi went to a certain place. V'ro b'makom dochuk letalmidim, and he saw that the place was too tight, not enough space for the students to learn properly. V'yotza l'sodeh u'matza sodeh malei oimrim. He went out to the field and he found that it was filled with bundles. V'imer Rabbi kol hasodeh kula, and Rabbi removed all of these bundles. The Gemara now brings another Maisa, a similar Maisa, to prove Rav Yosef Amar Hoshaya Pam Achas Holach Rabbi Chia L'Mokom Echad V'Ra'a Mokom Dochuk L'Talmidim. Similarly, he found a place that was too tight for the students to sit. V'Yatza L'Sodeh U'Motza Sodeh Malei Oimrim. He found that when he went out to the field, it was filled with bundles. V'Imer Rabbi Chia Kol HaSodeh Kulo, just as Rabbi did. So Shmamino Hakol Lefia Orchim. So you see, it's all according to the Orchim. He was able to mefana a lot. And still, we have the second question. When he did that, it means he did it, and therefore he himself can mefana all of it? Or does it mean that each person has to mefana himself? V'adayin tiboilo chad gavra mefana le lekula, or dilma kol gavra v'gav mefana lenafshei. Still, we had the question, can one person then mefana even a large amount? Or does it have to be each person to be mefane for himself? So we have a raya from this ma'aser. Toshma v'ima Rebbe, that Rebbe was mefane. Ask the Gemara l'taimeich, according to what you're saying, that Rebbe was mefane the whole thing. Rebbe ben nafshei or imer. Rebbe did it himself. Either you can explain the question as being Rebbe is Rebbe Yehuda HaNasi. That means the Nasi would do this all himself. Or you can explain that despite the fact that he was a Nasi, that he did all of this. I mean, he was matriach himself to then mefana the entire field, just he himself. It's not mistaber that one person would have mefana the whole field. And therefore, elatziva v'imer. Rather, you have to say that Rabbi, he commanded, he was mitzaveh, he was telling other people to then go ahead and clear the area. And therefore, you can say that each person will mefana himself. So we have a proof for the first question. The first question was indeed if there is a need for more room, because there's more talmidim, you can mefana even more. However, in regard to the second question, we didn't prove one way or the other whether one person can mefana all of that or each person is mefana himself. The Gemara now quotes our Mishnah as being one of the mitzvahs that one can be mefana for is for hachnosas orchim. Now, hachnosas orchim, again, doesn't mean that you're inviting your own friends to enjoy the Suda with you. Hachnosas orchim means that there's somebody who's in need of a place, either a poor person or a traveler, somebody that doesn't have a place to eat or a place to stay. That's the mitzvah of hachnosas orchim, which is doiche, and therefore you can mefane for that mitzvah. Rabbi Yochanan said the following: Gedoyla hachnosas orchim ki hashkomas beis hamedrash. Rabbi Yochanan says hachnosas orchim is as great as hashkomas beis hamedrash, getting up early to the beis hamedrash. Diktani, because it teaches together in our Mishnah mefane haorchim mefane bitol beis hamedrash. It brings both examples together as the mitzvah you can mefaneh for. So from here, Rabbi Yochanan learns that the mitzvah of Hachnas Orchim is also equal to then Hashkamas Beis HaMedrash. Rav Dimi Minehar Da Omar, he says even more. Yoiser Mehashkamas Beis HaMedrash. The mitzvah Hachnas Orchim is even greater than Hashkamas Beis HaMedrash, because over here the order of our Mishnah states first Hachnas Orchim, and then it states Bito Beis HaMedrash. Diktoni Mefane HaOrchim V'hodem Mefane Bito Beis HaMedrash. We have another Maimer Amar of Yehuda Marav in regards to Hachnas Orchim. Gedoyla Hachnas Orchim Mehagbolas Pnei Shechina. Greater is Hachnas Orchim than even being Mekabel, a Gilui of the Shechina. Dichsi, we have we have an example, a paradigm from Avram Avinu Olav Sholom. Dichsi, it says Vayomer. It says Hashem. The Gemara is learning that Adnus over there refers to Hashem. Imno motzasi chen be'einecho al nal ta'avor v'goymer. Here referring to Avram Avinu amidst his meeting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gilui Shechina. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to him when he just had 3 days after his bris milah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mevakir the choyle. And amidst that meeting, Avram Avinu, he asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please do not leave. I have to go be machnis orchim. So from here, Rav learns that gedoyla hachnas orchim mikabel shechina, because he's able to then tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or at least ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he can please remain present while he goes and brings in the orchim. So from here you see that bringing the orchim takes precedence. Omar bi Elazar bo urei shelo ki midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu midas basav adom. That from here you see that the midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not like the midah of a basar v'dam, because midas basar v'dam ain't katin yachal loyma legadol hamtein asheva etzlecha. A person of lesser stature cannot tell somebody of bigger stature to remain here for him and he'll return while he does something else. V'ilu b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ksiv, it says over here in this pasuk, Vayomer Hashem imno matzasi v'goymer. If I find favor in your eyes, Avram says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then please do not leave. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu indeed remained there, and he was masking. You see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midah is not like midah of basar v'dam. Says the Gemara, another statement, Amar of Yehuda bar Shilo, Amar of Asi, Amar B'Yoy Chanan. Shisha dvorim adam oichel perosim b'olam hazeh, v'hakeren kayemes loy la'olam habo. There are 6 things that a person will get benefits in this world, while the Iker Schar will remain in the next world. Ve'eluhein hachnas archim, ubikor cholin, ve'iun tefila, refers to davening with kavana, ve'hashkomas beis hamedrash, ve'hamegadel bonav letalmud Torah, ve'hadan es chavero lekaf zechus. So Rabbi Yochanan tells us there are 6 things that a person is oicha person b'olam hazeh v'keren kavos l'olam habo, and the first 3 are hachnas archim, bikor cholim, and iun tefila. The second 3 are Hashkamas Beis HaMedrash, Megadol, Bonim L'Talmud Torah, and Dan Eschaver Lekav Zechus. Ask the Gemara, Ini, V'Hatnan, it states in the Mishnah in Peah, Eilu Dvarim Sh'Adam Oichel, Oisa Oisam V'Oichel Osem B'Olam Hazeh, V'Hakeren Kayem Es Loi Lo'ilam Habo, V'Eilu Hein, Kibur Avo'im, Ugmilus Chasodim, V'Hava Shalom Bein Adam L'Chaveiroi, V'Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. So these are the 4 that the Mishnah mentions, and Rabbi Yochanan mentions other ones that are not mentioned here in the Mishnah. Answers the Gemara. Gemara asks, Hani in Midi Achrin Eloi. These 4 the Mishnah states, and not the other ones that Rabbi Yochanan is mentioning. On the top of Kuf Chav Zayin with Beis, answers the Gemara, Hani Nami B'Hani Shaychi. These also that are mentioned in Rabbi Yochanan's list of 6 are included in the 4 that are mentioned in the Mishnah. How so? For example, the first 2, when he says Hachnas Orchim and Bikor Cholim, those are included in Gemilus Chasodim. Take a look at Rashi in the top. Hachi Garsina Hani Nami Bahani Shaychi. Hachnas Orchim Ubikor Cholim Hainu Begemilus Chasodim. Those first 2 that Rabbi Yochanan mentions are included in the Mishnah when it says Gemilus Chasodim. V'iyun tefila, when a person dies with kavan, is also a chesed. Hainu b'chlal gemilus chasodim. Dichsi goymel nafsho ish chesed. He's doing a chesed to himself when he dies with kavana. because he's being merachem and he's being mevakesh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to then help him for all of his needs. He's doing the biggest chesed to himself, so it's including Gemus Chasodim. That which it states in Rabbi Yochanan's list of Hashkomas based on Medrash and Goydel V'Gidol Banim the Talmud Torah, Hainu Talmud Torah, that's included in that which it says Talmud Torah in the Mishnah. Dan es Chaver lekav zchus, that which Rabbi Yochanan mentions that also as one of the six. That's Bichlal Havo Shalom. That's included in the Havo Shalom in the Mishnah. The mitoisha hu machriya lizchus v'oimer. That when he is machriya, that a person's actions really he did it in a favorable way. He didn't do it in the wrong way, but rather he's done him in a favorable way. Then lo chotali, by saying he did not sin against me. So he's judging him favorably. Bezois anus hayi, he must have been ba'oines when he did what he did. He gives a justification for his actions. Or letoiva niskaven, or he indeed intended for good. Yesh shalom beineim, that brings shalom. So we see that dan lekav schus, that Rabbi Yochanan listed, is included in that which it says to then be included in Havo Shalom in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan lefaresh lecha asad bechlal gimel de masnisin isnu lahanachvav, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan comes to explain with an additional explanation that which is stated in the Mishnah. V'ikanami lechvod avaim. And that one that's mentioned in the Mishnah as Kibud Aveim, as the first one, is not something that is argued upon by Rabbi Yochanan. He certainly would agree with that. The other ones that he mentioned are included in the other five that's stated in the five that he mentioned are stated in the other three of the Mishnah.